I'm a mama of a NICU survivor who is now all toddler, and I work full-time from home as a virtual assistant. My name is Liz, and I'm a miraculous mama.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Miraculous Mamas podcast. I'm your host, Elizabeth Joy, and today I have on Trista Sutter, and she is so much fun to talk to. I can just tell you that the podcast just went in directions that I didn't know it was going to go, and she's just like so open, and we just have such a great conversation. I feel like she's somebody that if I ever met her in real life, we could just like sit down and talk for hours over coffee because she's just so insightful and just such a good mama and human, and it's so much fun talking to her. Before we dive into the episode, if you're listening, make sure that you are subscribed to the podcast and to connect with us on Instagram, on our Facebook group, and to leave us a review. That is how we get the word out about what we are doing and about the community, and how basically it reaches more people or is seen more. So if you're listening and you've loved an episode, I'd love for you to leave a review and tell me which was your favorite episode and why you loved it. And again, make sure that you, connect with our Facebook group and our Instagram. I'm going to go ahead and just dive right into the interview because, like I said, it is just so awesome. I love talking to Trista, and I can't wait for you guys to hear what she has to say. All right, everyone, I have Trista Sutter here, and you guys kind of know her as an OG from The Bachelorette, and I'm so excited that she's joining us today. She's a mom of 2, so thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course.
I'm excited to chat to a fellow Bachelor Nation grad.
Oh, geez.
You're like, don't mention that.
Yeah, no.
It's a secret. Tell my listeners. No, I'm just kidding.
Basically, I'm like, oh no. No, but everyone was seriously so excited when I told them that you were coming on. So, and as somebody like a part of Bachelor Nation, we'll just talk about that a little bit first before we dive into motherhood. Do you still currently watch the show?
Oh yeah. I will always watch the show. I feel like it's part of my history and a great part of my history because, you know, I met my husband and have my kids because of it. Yeah, I will always watch the show. I feel really maternal towards all of you, including you. Like, I just feel like everyone who comes on the show after me, I don't know. It's a weird phenomenon, but I definitely feel maternal and like protective, and I'm a really loyal person anyway. So yeah, I'll always be loyal to the show, and I watch it because it's one of my guilty pleasures too.
Yeah. Uh-huh. How do you feel like it's changed since you've been on it?
Oh gosh, in so many ways. I mean, number one is high definition. I think little things, you know, we actually sat down during rose ceremonies, which is kind of strange to think about. There wasn't a first impression rose. The travel, like I didn't know such great places, even though, you know, nothing wrong with Seattle, New York, like where I went. Yeah, I would have loved to go to Iceland or New Zealand or Spain. That, and then, gosh, I was talking to someone about this the other day. What was it? I mean, social media obviously is probably the biggest, you know, I say high definition joking, but, social media is huge. You know, I feel like people have the opportunity to talk to each other before the shows, like Bachelor in Paradise. I feel like people come on to the show and think, oh, this person's going to be on. I'm going to reach out to them. I'm going to DM them because I'm totally into them. And let's see if we can, you know, get the ball rolling before it even starts. So, social, and then just a lot of people obviously wanting to kind of follow in the footsteps of a lot of the influencers who are out there now. which I think, as someone who is, yes, an OG, it's sad to me because it takes away from the main premise of the show, and that's finding love. And I would love for it to be as innocent as it was back in the day. But, people got to do what they got to do. I don't hold it against them. I just wish that there was still some innocence left,
Yeah.
Gosh, like stylists and makeup artists and, the game has been upped. Oh, one big change. I feel like this season, it kind of made me aware of this change is all the rumors going around about Claire choosing Dale and, basically like just heading off into the sunset with him is, that's the rumor. We'll find out probably tonight what happens, but, there is no way I could have done that. No way. It was like in the contract, you sign the contract, you can't leave early, you have to go through everything. Like, I feel like if I had even asked if I could say goodbye to someone early, they would have said no. So I feel like in a lot of ways, they're trying to keep it new and fresh and ever evolving. Hi, Soaps. My dog's saying. So, I feel like that is a huge change that I feel like the producers realize that in order to keep people watching and to keep it fresh and new and exciting, that maybe they should follow the lead of the lead and allow them to do what feels right to them. And I say kudos, I think that's great. I think that if this is truly what happened and Claire rode off into the sunset with Dale, Tayshia gets a shot, like what better than to have two bachelorettes and hopefully two love stories. So, I think that's a big change.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's definitely, I didn't watch it. I've only watched a couple seasons. Confession time.
It's all good.
But I do think so. Like, I feel like you have to adapt. So I'm sure like just finding ways to keep people coming back. Cause it seems like the show was a huge hit, but it's only like continued to grow, people just continue to stay tuned in and to be Bachelor Nation, and I feel like it just has grown. So, I'm sure they had to learn to allow some more of the drama by like letting people do what they feel,
For sure. Yeah.
So what do your kids know about how you and your husband met? Are they like, do they know your guys' full Bachelor story?
They do now. They're 13 and 11, and we've had a couple. Through the years, obviously, we've done a lot of tapings with the show, whether it's just catch-ups or photo shoots or whatever. And so they've always been involved, but up until recently, they really didn't know the extent. I'd say probably a few years ago. They came to do Where Are They Now? And they taped the kids, and I feel like we talked more about it. It was hysterical. They had the kids on and they were like, what do you think about your parents being, having met through a television show? And Max is like, huh? Like, classic teenage comment, like, huh? What are you talking about? And I don't care, like, that's stupid. That's boring. And then our daughter is like, she could be one that would be actually on the show if it was still around when the time comes for her to be old enough to date. So they know about it. And, they support it in their own ways. I think that it's interesting because with smartphones and the internet, their friends are now asking us about it. And like, I'll get a kid because they're in middle school. So the middle schoolers will be like, Trista, she was the first bachelorette, like across the playground or whatever. I'm like, oh God, stop. Anyway, their friends are getting more interested and finding out about the show, because like they'll sit with their parents and they'll say, "Hey, do you know Blakesley and Max's mom and dad were on the show? They met on the show. They got married on TV, And then the kids will be like, "What?
Mm-hmm.
No way." And so it's really funny to kind of relive our early days in their eyes.
Mm-hmm.
And we're proud of it. There's nothing to be ashamed of. It's just the way we met.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's all.
Yeah. It's kind of cool though that you do have your love story captured, That's fun.
I've always said that, like a great videographer.
Mm-hmm.
When we got married, in the contract, they said that we could have our own videographer. And at the time I was like, why would I want that? Like, there's going to be cameras everywhere. I mean, don't you think you're going to be able to capture it?
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't get one. And I kind of wish that I would have, just to have something a bit more intimate prepared, but it's all good.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. We are going to take a quick break to talk about something that is very near and dear to my heart, and that is getting help when you need it. There's absolutely no shame in talking to somebody about what you're going through, which is why I love the platform BetterHelp. I have used them before, and they are such an amazing resource. What's great about them is that you can start communicating with a licensed professional in under 24 hours. And whether you're struggling with depression, stress, anxiety, motherhood, anger, whatever it is, they are there. It's confidential, it's convenient, it's professional, it's affordable. It's actually mental health care that is affordable, and you don't have to sit in a doctor's office. I've been to therapy several times, and it's always awkward, like going into the office and sitting there and there's other people in there and you're like, oh, are they wondering like what I'm here about? Like what's going on? So it's just so convenient to be able to do it out of your home. You can do what you feel comfortable with, whether it's text or email or video calls or phone calls, and they will match you with somebody who's going to be right for you. And in fact, there's so many people that have been using BetterHelp that they're now recruiting additional counselors in all 50 states. And I want you to be able to live your happiest life. And as a listener, you'll get 10% off your first month by visiting BetterHelp.com/mamas. Join over 1 million people taking charge of their mental health. Again, that's BetterHelp, HELP.com/mamas. Now back to the episode. So I'd love to get into motherhood a little bit. But before we dive into like postpartum and pregnancies and things like that, one of the questions that people ask, since you brought up social media, is like, how do you handle that with your kids now?
Oh, it's so hard.
Because I feel like tons of the moms are trying to navigate that, because it's like, kids at such a young age have phones now, and then there's the whole social media stuff. So like, yeah, how are you handling it?
So I just I'm sure we would talk about this later, but I just started a new podcast. It's called Better, Etc. I wanted to put something out there to help people be better versions of themselves, because I want that for myself. And I was set to interview a guy named Colin Karchner on Thursday, I think, last week. He started a movement called Save the Kids, and he lectures all over the country all year round, talking about the dangers of smartphones and the internet and porn and social media. And I've been following him for a couple of years now. And I was so excited to have him on the podcast, because I really wanted to pick his brain on how to be the best parent for my kids in the age that we're living in. And unfortunately, very, very, very sadly and suddenly, he passed away 2 days before I was supposed to talk to him. So I didn't get the chance. I would have so much better understanding of how to answer that question. But if I had the chance to talk to him, there's a lot out there on what he was doing. He had his own podcast. He did a TED Talk. He shared constantly on his Instagram page. So there's a lot of information out there for anyone wanting to go check it out. It's COLLINKARTCHNER. If people want to check it out. But so the kids don't have social besides TikTok. So Blakesley had, my daughter, she's 11. She had TikTok for probably about a year. And we recently got rid of it this summer. And Max he still has it, but I'm not as concerned. I know it's horrible to say, but I'm not as concerned about Max. Like she is very impressionable, and I loved the creative aspect of it. I love the dances that they learn and how they can create these fun little videos on their own. I love the creative outlet of it. But I got a call from one of my neighbors who has a daughter her age. And she said, have you checked out Blakesley's TikTok page lately? And I said, no. Why? Yeah. This is not a good conversation. I can already hear it. And she said, you might want to check it out because I feel like the things that she's posting you probably wouldn't be okay with. And, at first when she started, I told her no crop tops. Of course, crop tops are like all the trend right now, especially with teenage girls. She was wearing crop tops. She was doing very sexually provocative moves that she didn't even know were sexually provocative. Mm-hmm. She would do motions like smoking. Mm-hmm. Had no idea. There was this whole big controversy when Hannah Brown said the N-word mm-hmm. on one of her stories, and Blakesley had songs playing in the background that had the N-word. And even though I told her a lot about it and I talked to her about it, it's still she's only 11. She doesn't understand the permanence and the possible permanence of putting these videos out. And she was addicted to it. She was on it all the time. And she would choose TikTok over hanging out with her friends. And so that day I sat down with her and we had a heart to heart. And I said, when we first said that you could be on this, you agreed, no crop tops. I told you some of the dangers of it and not chatting with people that she didn't know and that sort of thing. And I just said, I think that there are a lot of, I talked to her about the women's movement and how far women have come. And I mean, we were fighting for our right to vote, century ago. And, just talk to her about that and how if we continue to, portray ourselves as just sexual beings, that's all we're going to be thought of. And just we had a really heavy, but an important conversation. There wasn't any arguing. It was just a really good heart to heart. And at the end of it, I said, so what do you think we should do? And she said, I think we should delete it. So she came to that conclusion on her own. I agreed. And we've since deleted it. She will go if there's someone who post something fun on TikTok, it shows up on YouTube. So she'll watch YouTube. And so she sees other people doing it, but she's not the one putting it out there. So I'm a little more comfortable with that. However, it's still really bothersome to me. I mean, I want to protect my kids from the dangers out there. And holy cow, we really have a lot to deal with as parents in this generation. It's kind of overwhelming. Mm-hmm. I think that what Colin would say is basically to delete it all. Don't even give your kids smartphones. We have given our kids smartphones. We made the conscious decision to do so because they were skiing on their own or going to the skateboard park on their own, walking around, little shopping areas on their own. And I just felt like I needed to be connected to them. So that's the reason that they got the phones. But, I definitely need to be better about about monitoring their usage and minimizing the addiction, because I feel like even I'm addicted. I mean, that's where I make a living. You know, I earn a living through my Instagram account. And I love to be able to share the companies that I truly believe in. Like, I don't share anything that isn't authentic, but I feel like when you're 11 and 13, your brain isn't fully formed, and it's hard to make those decisions, like good choices, on your own. So it's really, really hard. I would just say to do your research out there, look for people like Colin, follow people like Colin who are out there talking about the suicide rates and porn. I mean, he did a podcast with this woman who started a company called Hero Bands. She was sex trafficked from the age of 4 that she remembers, so probably earlier, in a wealthy community in Utah, and until she was an adult, after she was married, actually, because they were blackmailing her. So I literally talked to Blakesley about it the other day. I told her, I said, you know, there are many reasons that I don't want you to watch porn. We've had the sex talk. We've had those big talks. There's many reasons for not watching porn, but here's another one. And I told her her story and how she was sold basically into pornography and prostitution. And it's horrifying and so, so scary to me as a parent. Because when they're babies, you know, you're basically trying to keep them alive and, you know, thriving physically. But it's more the mental fight now, the emotional fight, and, you know, just trying to protect them that way. And it's, holy cow, it's so much harder to me personally. You know, I feel like it's much harder this age than it was for babies, but I love babies. So.
Yeah. Well, thank you for just like being real and sharing all that. Cause I know that those conversations are hard, and I love the way that you handled that with your daughter, like coming to that conclusion together and letting her kind of realize, you know, that maybe I should delete this. And it is scary. It is, I know, like for me with my daughter, like every night when I'm rocking her, I'm just like praying like a hedge of protection around her, you know, because this world is just so different. And I don't know if it's, I mean, I do feel like the social media and stuff definitely amplifies it. It's like, are we just more aware or is there more happening? But I feel like it's both. And I've actually listened to Colin too. I feel like there was a clip of him on a Christian radio station that I was listening to about social media and kids and stuff like that. So, but I feel like that's an awesome account. And for people listening and the people who are asking that question, definitely check his account, and I'll link that in the show notes too, so that people can find it.
Awesome.
But you said that you love them as babies, so let's go way back there.
I'd love to.
How were your pregnancies with both kids, and then how was just your transition into motherhood and going from, like, even in your marriage, like adding a kid and then going from 1 kid to 2, just all of the different transitions that come with it?
Yeah. So I had wanted to be a mom for as long as I could remember. Top of my bucket list, you know, and when we got married, we took a year, 2 years to just enjoy each other because our engagement was so short. And well, I mean, it was a year engagement, but we got engaged in a very short period of time. So we used that engagement time to get to know each other. But once we wanted to start trying actively, it was extremely difficult. You know, you have all these visions of, oh, well, when I finally want to have kids and I am with the man that I love, why isn't it happening? And it was really, really, really frustrating. We tried everything. We ended up going to an IVF doctor in Denver, who's really world renowned. He actually feel like his partner is the one who created IVF. But anyway, so we started going to them, And we had done, I think, 2 appointments, just like the basic baseline where they do, some testing to figure out if everything's healthy for both partners. And they did a hysterosalpingogram, which is basically like fleshing out your fallopian tubes. I'm sure you know, but for your listeners. And it had been 2 years at this point, or almost 2 years, that we had been actively trying. So it was a really long time. And after this hysterosalpingogram, I got pregnant. So I think it was just my tubes were clogged, thankfully.
Yeah.
So that happened. We got pregnant. I loved most of it, but I had gestational diabetes. I fainted one time and ended up on my belly in the middle of the night, which was really scary. I then had preeclampsia and HELLP syndrome with my first, which I didn't even know was happening when it was happening. Mm-hmm. They only told me after the fact. But that day, I just didn't feel right. And so I called my doctor, and of course she was out of town. She just said, just go to the hospital, listen to your body. So I went to the hospital. They admitted me and put all the monitors on me and told me I should stay overnight because my liver enzymes were looking not so great. But they didn't say it like that day. They were like, okay, just stay overnight. So I wake up in the morning to my doctor coming in and saying, your labs are tanking. They're awful. And so he said, we're going to induce you. They put the inducing medication on me. They spread it on your genitals essentially. And let's see what happened. Oh, timing. So I waited for it to be induced essentially. And he came in again. And I think this was probably like an hour later. He's like, you are not progressing as quickly as we'd like you to. So we're going to do a C-section. I was like, oy. So I get ready, go do the C-section. They give me the spinal or the epidural or whatever. I lay down expecting to be numb because I had never been through that before. And she's like, okay, he is like, okay, I'm ready to cut. And so I felt the scalpel in my skin. And I was like, oh, no, I can feel that. And he was like, you can feel this? And he put his finger on my stomach and I was like, that's your finger. And he goes, and what's this? And I'm like, that's a scalpel. So he was like, okay, we have to get the baby out now. It is critical that we get the baby out now. So the epidural just wasn't working as quickly as it needed to be. So I'm laying there and my husband's still in the room because at this point we were thinking we were going to have a C-section. And so they gave me the paralytic, which is, I guess, what they start with. And then they put you under. And I had been given the paralytic, like laying there on this table, knowing like, you have the sheet here and you can't see anything. And Ryan was still in the room. So they gave me the paralytic, but they didn't put me under until he was out of the room. So I was paralyzed for like, it was probably seconds, but it felt like forever. Mm-hmm. And then they put me under and he was born perfectly fine. I mean, he had to be on oxygen for 4 months. But we live at 8,500 feet and, oxygen use is pretty critical, especially for a baby he was 4 weeks early. So he was great and I was fine afterwards, but I remember friends coming to visit and the nurse telling them that they needed to leave because I was really sick. And I was like, what do you mean? I'm really sick, huh? I thought I just had a baby and I thought this is how everyone feels. But yeah, so HELLP syndrome and preeclampsia, it was scary. And then everything went fine with Max. I nursed him for a year. And when I stopped nursing, I actually got pregnant with Blakesley, which was crazy because we went through so much turmoil in trying to have Max, or trying to even get pregnant with Max, that she just came naturally. She was born in what was called the blizzard of 2009. In the paper, that was the headline.
Oh, wow.
The blizzard of 2009. And it was April. So I found someone. I called my doctor. I had lost my mucus plug. I called her and she's like, get to the hospital. So I found someone to watch Max. Ryan was working at the fire station at the time. I called a friend. She took me. We're on the highway. And there's this one section that is called Dowd Junction. It's like the only way that you can get from where I live to the hospital in Vail. And it's slowing down because of this blizzard. And there's a state patroller or a state trooper who cut everyone off. And they were like, no one else is getting through. And we were like 3 or 4 cars behind him. And so I called Ryan, and I'm in labor, and I had Braxton Hicks with both pregnancies pretty much the whole time. So I was dealing with the contractions that I had been dealing with for a long time with both pregnancies. So I knew what they felt like, but it was obviously a bit more intense. So I call Ryan, and he's like, well, there's an ambulance about 100 feet behind you, and it can't get through. So if you want to have this baby at a hospital and not on the highway, then you better go up to that state trooper and beg to be let through. So we drove up, and I will never forget the guy's face. He was like deer in the headlights. And I said, I'm in labor. I need to get to the hospital. And you could tell he was like processing, like, crap. Should I try to even deliver this baby? And I was like, I'm high risk. I had HELLP syndrome and preeclampsia with my first. I cannot deliver this baby on a highway. I need to be at the hospital. So he's like, okay, well, you guys can go through, but go really, really slowly, because there are snowplows coming. Like, you'll be driving this way. The snowplows are going to be coming on the same side of the highway towards you because they can't get through the other way. And as we were driving, there were at least 20 cars off the side of the road that we kind of had to swerve around. So it was freaking scary.
Oh my gosh.
But thank goodness we made it in time, and she was delivered perfectly. So the deliveries were hard. It was hard to get pregnant. Once I found out that I was having a girl, I was like, okay, this is it. I don't need to put my body through this. I was a pediatric physical therapist. I treated patients in the NICU. I treated kids who had genetic syndromes. I treated like pretty much everything, the gamut. And I knew what could go wrong. So I knew that we were blessed by having 2 healthy babies, and I didn't want to press my luck. So, and I was getting older at that point. I think I was 36 or 37 when I had Blakesley, which also puts you in high risk. So we just decided that would be our complete family, and they're the best thing that's ever happened to me.
Yeah. Wow. So you had 2 crazy birth stories, but like in different ways, like driving through a blizzard, and then I can't believe you felt the scalpel. Oh my gosh.
I know it. It was like, dude, hello. Do not cut into me. I can feel that.
Oh my
crazy
gosh. How
it was like a horror movie, essentially.
Oh my gosh. I feel like I would just pass out.
I know. I can't believe I didn't, actually. I think it was just all the adrenaline and everything, like keeping me like fight or flight. I was just like wide awake. What is going on? And of course, when you're in an operating room, it's super cold and the lights are like blinding you and all the things. So it was crazy, but I would go through it again to have them, the things that we do for our kids.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So how was, I guess, transitioning for you postpartum, with 1 kid and then with 2?
So with Max, it was, he was our first, and it was hard, but it was I thrived. I feel like, like you don't get any sleep. Breastfeeding was really hard to get used to. I explained it as a little like gnome in my breast, like stabbing me from the inside.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I felt. At least at first. I know it was awful, but it was incredible. It was such a gift to be able to do that, because I know so many people have difficulty with it and just can't. Or whether the kid isn't latching, or you're having trouble producing, or you have to work, like I was just really thankful that I could be home with him and really bond with him during that special time. So that was hard to get used to. The sleep thing is probably the biggest thing. And not losing the weight was hard. Quickly. I did lose it eventually. It's so funny. Actually, I recently posted a throwback to our honeymoon, and I posted a picture of, we were kayaking and I was in a bathing suit, and I was like, oh, I miss my abs or something like that. And someone was like, your body is beautiful. Don't shame yourself because you gave birth to 2 healthy babies. And I'm like, I'm not. My kids are 11 and 13. I've had plenty of time to lose the weight and get my abs back. But it's just like, I've just been lazy. I'm not going to the gym as much as I should be. And I think it has nothing to do with my children. So just let me vent. So anyway, it was hard, but it was great. Mm-hmm. It was the first grandchild for both of our families. He was, showered with love and attention, and it was great. When Blakesley came, it was a huge transition, because while I was pregnant, he was born, they were 20 months apart. So when I was pregnant, he was tiny. I don't think he was even walking at that point. So I was carrying him everywhere and following him everywhere. And that was hard, because I wanted to be on the ground, like feeling like I did when he was a baby, but it was difficult. I mean, it wasn't anything I couldn't get over, but it was hard. And then when she was born, that was hard too, but I found ways to enjoy my time. Like we watched So You Think You Could Dance. Like mm-hmm. I would put on a show that I wanted to watch that was fun for them. And he would dance in front of the television, and I'd be nursing her, and it was great. And he actually loved her so much. I show him videos and pictures all the time, because not anymore. Mm-hmm. Yeah. He's 13 and he's got a younger sister who's a grade below him, and he's like, whatever. So it was a really sweet time with the kids, and it's a hard transition, like having any child or any big life change in your home. But like I said, I love babies, and that's my jam. Like as a pediatric physical, that's why I got into pediatrics, because I love all those ages. Mm-hmm. I feel like I have more of a short fuse now than I did back then. Just because like the respect and, mm-hmm. Trust and all the worries I have now, it's grown kind of significantly. So, back in the day, I could do play dates with my friends and, keep them in this little bubble. And now they're outside of the bubble in a way. And so it's harder to handle them being older, just because I worry mm-hmm. a whole lot more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know. I know I'm getting way ahead of myself because my daughter's still tiny, but I have those conversations with my husband now. I'm like, I just want to protect her in every way, and it's like, how do you, when I was a kid, the rules were you come home when the street lights turn on. I grew up in a small town, so you run around the neighborhood and it's it's dark enough that the street lamps are coming on. That means it's time to go home. And I'm like, how do I even mm-hmm. Let her ride her bike through the neighborhood now without being a helicopter mom?
Totally. It's so hard. It's so hard. I have fought with that a lot, being a helicopter mom, because I grew up in the same way you did. I lived on a cul-de-sac, and you went around and ran around and went to different kids' houses, and you just came home when it was dark. So yeah, I know that bad stuff happened when we were kids, but like you said, with social media, it's the same. Like, I feel like we're just so much more aware of the bad things, and we want to be able to protect them. So, I don't know how my parents did it. I really don't.
Right. It's like, did they just worry less, or like what?
Well, I know my mom worried a lot. She's a worrier, and she would tell me that, you'll understand when you have kids how much you worry. You just want them to have a better life than you did. And that can be difficult.
Yeah.
Really difficult.
Yeah, for sure. So how was, this one person said her and Ryan are couples goals. And people were just asking too, like, how do you keep the fire burning in your relationship?
That's hard too. I think that now that our kids are older, it's a little bit easier, but it's also hard in the same respect, because we've had the sex talk. Like, they know what sex is. Mm-hmm. When like 5-10 years ago, they had no idea. And so you would just they're sleeping, and you don't have to worry about them barging in. And even if they did, you probably could explain it away,
Right, yeah.
And they probably wouldn't remember. But I think it's just a matter of making time for your relationship, prioritizing it. And Brian and I are in a really great groove right now. I feel like he is back in a career that he loves, because he took a little break from firefighting for a year. And now he's back, and he's fulfilled in that part of his life. And now I am too, with my new podcast. And I think we're both in really good places, and we're appreciative more so of each other and our relationship, and, the struggles that we've been through. And like when he leaves at 4 a.m. whenever he works. Like today he's working, and he left at 4 this morning. And I'm trying to be good about like leaving little sticky notes for him. Words of affirmation are really big for us. And so that's a big thing. Also just trying to be there. It's like the little things. Yeah. Putting the fire back into your relationship is big in terms like when you say that phrase, you think just sex, mm-hmm. essentially, like mm-hmm. your sex life. But I really feel like it's more about embracing and honoring and appreciating your relationship for what it is, and appreciating each other. I was struggling a few weeks ago. I was really overwhelmed. And I think I was cooking dinner. I don't even know if he was home, but I was cooking dinner, and I was just stressed. And he's like, "What is wrong?" And I'm like, "I am just overwhelmed. You have known since the second you met me, probably, that I do not like cooking. I'm not, I don't hold back about it. I've always said that I wasn't born with the cooking gene. And it's just something that fell into my lap as a stay-at-home and work mom. Like I was responsible for doing the shopping, for picking, for meal planning, for chopping, for prepping, for actually getting it on the table. And because it's something that I do not enjoy doing for whatever reason, like I think I was just born like that, I was getting so overwhelmed. And so he literally took it off my plate. He was like, "You know what? He's going through some autoimmune stuff right now. And so he's trying this like anti-inflammatory diet. And he like took it off my plate, and he's been cooking for us whenever he's home. If we're not home, he's like, "You'll have enough leftovers." Like that to me is lighting the fire of our relationship, because mm-hmm. he listened, he heard me, he saw that I was overwhelmed, and he he took that away, that stress from me. And so, I feel like it's just about the little things, listening to each other, respecting where each other is, appreciating each other, being grateful for your relationship and where you've been and where you're going. I think all of those things are so important. And so it's not just the sex part, which, I think is also very important. You need to dedicate time to that part of your relationship for sure. But I also think it's about the everyday little things, and just making sure that you're validating each other's emotions and respecting each other for what you're going through and appreciating each other for the relationship you have.
Mm-hmm. That's so good. I recently got some advice from somebody because like the biggest thing being postpartum, people are like, oh, when you hit that 6-week mark, it's like, oh, you can have sex again. And, it's like this mark of whatever. And I was talking about how I was feeling overwhelmed in motherhood. And she said something very similar to you. She was like, when you're feeling loved and supported and knowing that like, it's okay if the house is a mess, like you're not feeling guilty about it or whatever it is. But when you're feeling loved and supported in these different areas, then that'll help make you feel sexy again, like being more in the mood and not having to switch from like mom mode to wife mode. It's like, when you have a partner who's listening to you and hearing you. And I totally get that. Cause the other day I was trying to put her down and my husband just went and like cleaned up dinner and he just and because I'm like, I'm going to have to put her down, then I'm going to clean up dinner, then I'm going to be tired. And I came out and like everything was clean and I'm like, you're getting lucky. It's like, yeah, you're right. Cause then it's like,
it's true.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause I'm like, cause in my mind, I'm like, cause then I would have just been thinking about how much I had to get done, so it's like hard to enjoy it. But I'm like, man, that makes me feel 100%. So good that he saw that and he took it from me. So now I can just go to bed, like I don't have to do anymore. So
I know,
I think that
I know it really, bonds your relationship more, and like you said, you're getting lucky. Like you are motivated to actually give him what he needs and give your relationship what it needs if you're both invested and doing your part. And so I think that's super important. And, marriages go through ebbs and flows, you're not always going to be in like Ryan. I have a feeling that this cooking that he's going through is not going to last forever.
Right, yeah.
And, I'll probably have to pick it up at some point in time, but that's what you do in a partnership, in a marriage. You're there. One person picks each other up one day and then the next person picks the other up the next day. I think it's just about respecting those ebbs and flows and sticking with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So another question that some people had asked about too was your faith and how just kind of in the world today, I mean, 2020 has just been like a crazy year in general. I know, but just, even being like an influencer and just the world today, like how has your faith, I guess, evolved?
Yeah. So I was raised Catholic and, I don't consider myself a Catholic anymore. I more consider myself a Christian. And it's important to me. I literally just said a prayer in the shower today, just being thankful for today. It's really important to me. It's a go-to. It's something that I need to rely on because it gets me through the hard times. Like today, it's the release of my podcast. So I'm just excited about the day and thankful to be able to be, working in this new medium, at least for me. And it's fueling me, it fires me up and gets me excited about living. But I actually had a near-death experience. I was on vacation in Europe 3 years ago, and I had a seizure. It's a really long story, but during the seizure, I went to what I called a white euphoria. So I was surrounded by white, really bright white, no floor, no ceiling, just an expanse of white. And I felt so happy, like so happy. And I remember hearing Ryan and Blakesley's voices saying, Mom, or babe, you know, are you there? Are you there? And they pulled me back. And I truly believe that what I experienced was near death. My lips were turning blue. I was unconscious, obviously. And I very well could have died. And so I feel like I got a little glimpse into what it could look like after death. That's my belief. And I believe that, you know, because I am a person of faith and because I've tried to live a good life, that will be where I end up, hopefully.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's really important to me. And I feel like I rely on that a lot when I'm going through the struggles in my life. And the good days, like today.
Yeah. Tell us about your podcast, because you recently announced that you're launching one. So that is your kind of next passion project that you're doing. Tell us about that.
So for a couple of years, I've been approached by a few different people, organizations to start one. And it always kind of felt forced. I felt like, well, yeah, I could do one, but what am I going to talk about? And there's so many Bachelor podcasts out there. I didn't want to step on anyone's toes, you know, especially of friends who are doing them, like Caitlin Bristow and, oh my gosh, Becca and Rachel, Bachelor Happy Hour. And there's just so many out there now that I thought, yeah, that's part of my world, but everyone's covering it. It's all good. Mm-hmm. Then I thought parenting, and I didn't want to just put myself into one little niche. I wanted to be able to talk about a bit more than just parenting. So, you know, a couple of years ago, I had a podcast in the works, and like I said, it was forced. It didn't feel right. And so I put it on the back burner. Quarantine hit, and I'm at home with the kids. You know, they're homeschooling. Tensions are high. We're all on edge. They're not seeing their friends. I'm seeing my friends. We can't go outside. I mean, we could go outside. We couldn't go like do our normal thing. And I got into an argument with my son, and I still don't know what the argument was about. I mentioned it the other day. I think he listened to my trailer, and he was like, what? He doesn't remember either. So, we got into this argument, and I walked away from the argument thinking I need to be better. I just felt like I was failing at everything. I was in a really bad mental place, depressed, and I felt lonely. And, you know, I mean, I feel like so many people have gone through it. And it hit me. I need to be better. That's what I want it to be about. So I plan on talking about anything and everything that will make people better, at anything. So the first guest I had is Ryan. He went through this huge career change for the past few years. And so he's talking about finding your purpose and kind of what makes him tick. And what makes him tick is one of his mottos called no rush, no pause. And we talk about that. And it's very philosophical, and, you know, so we talk a little bit about how to live a happier life. And then my next episode, which will be next Tuesday, they release every Tuesday, is with a lady named Kat Sadler, who's actually a friend of mine. We went to college together. She was on E! News for 12 years, I believe, and talks about breakups and handling breakups, because she actually left her job after 12 years. It was all over the press. because she found out that her male counterpart was making twice as much as she was. And she was probably working more than him. So we talk about that and her personal breakups as well, because she's been through a couple divorces. So handling breakups. And then I'm talking to Mindy Weiss soon, who planned my wedding, about how to plan the perfect event. So it can be light stuff. It can be heavy stuff. I want to cover it all. I want to cover parenting. That's why I was going to have Colin on to talk about how we can better protect our kids from the dangers of technology. Mm-hmm. And I reached out today to a guy who is an expert in pets and animals and how you treat your pets. So nothing is off the table. I want to talk anything and everything that people can use to help create a better life, mm-hmm. and help them be better versions of themselves. So it launched today. My first episode is out, and I'm just really excited. I wrote a book about 5 or 6 years ago, actually 6 years ago. And it was about the power of gratitude, and it fueled me for a while too, and still does to this day, because it's something positive. I wanted to leave that quote, and Ryan and I talked about this, about leaving the world a better place, for, future generations. That's what I want to do. I want to spread positivity. I want to, even though I'm not always positive, I definitely fall short a lot, and I personally can be better. So I wanted to put something out there that I would listen to, that can help make the world a better place.
Mm-hmm. That's so amazing. I'm definitely going to have to listen to that. Thank you so much for just being so open and sharing so much with us today. And I feel like the majority of my audience already follows you, but if they don't, where can they find and follow you?
At Trista Sutter on Instagram, and then at Better Etc. on Instagram. It's Better ETC. And I have a website, but really it's just, it's literally just for people to email me. I haven't updated, I feel like, in years. I probably should, but mostly just on Instagram and Facebook too. If people are more inclined to be on Facebook, then they can go to Trista Sutter fan page.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to come on here and share with us today.
Thanks so much. I'm excited to be doing this. I mean, I feel like you've been going for how long now?
A couple years.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And are you still loving it?
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's great. I mean, human connection, I feel like is, well, and even animal connection is the best part of life for me. And to be able to have these conversations with people, who can speak about different interesting topics, I think is really, I'm really excited about it. So, congratulations on your 2 years.
Yeah.
Hopefully in 2 years, I'll be able to say the same.
Yeah, for sure. It's, I guess for me, I feel like I learned so much, like you said, the human interaction, but also just like the guests that come on, because everybody has a different story, a different experience. So, whether it's somebody who's educating us or somebody just sharing their story, I feel like you learn each time, so I think that
Bingo.
You're going to enjoy doing it for sure.
I can't wait. I have been enjoying it. That's for sure. I've loved the first few episodes that I've recorded, and I just can't wait to, like my brain is constantly churning with, ooh, that person sounds like, and I've been listening to tons more podcasts, just because I'm trying to get, the lay of the land, mm-hmm. and how they all work, and what kind of guests I could have on, and what kind of guests that I enjoy listening to, and that sort of thing. So, yeah, it'll be fun. So congratulations on yours. And
thank you.
Hopefully people will listen to mine.
Yeah, they will for sure. Well, thank you again for coming on.
Thank you. Thanks, Liz.
She is so fun. I still can't believe her 2 different birth stories. Oh my gosh. In a blizzard. And then she felt the scalpel. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. I just can't even imagine. But she's just a breath of fresh air. I love her. And so make sure that you go follow her along in her journey. She's just, again, I'm just so grateful for her for coming on and just how open she was about everything, and to check out her podcast. I'm actually really excited to listen to her podcast because it sounds like the guests that she wants to bring on and the conversations are just right up my alley. So, and I love listening to podcasts. I listen to a handful of other ones. So, I'm super excited to add this to the list. I cannot wait for you guys to hear next week. I have on Hunter. She is a mindful mama coach, or mindful mama mentor, but it goes like so much deeper than that. It's not just like, just sit and practice mindfulness. It's, as a parent, noticing your triggers and how they play out and how you parent and how to change and how to build relationships with your children. And we address that. She has like a whole course on like how to stop yelling at your kids and using threats and how to set up healthy boundaries. And she's just so awesome. And I cannot wait for you to hear from her. Well, I hope you guys have an amazing week. Welcome to November. You guys, it is November. Holy cannoli. I can't believe the year is almost over. But I can also, I'm ready to put up my Christmas tree. I don't know about you guys, but I'm not a huge Halloween person. I'm just a Christmas person. And there was snow last week on the ground, and I was like, I'm ready to get out the Christmas decorations and just enjoy the Christmas season for 4 months out of the year, because that would be heaven to me. So anyways, it's November, you guys. I cannot wait for you guys to hear next week's episode. Reach out to me. Let me know who you want to hear from, what topics you want to hear, and all of that stuff, because I'd love to give you guys what you want to hear. So, all right. Love you guys. Bye.
If you want to be the most interesting person at the cocktail party, well, hop on over and listen to the Brain Candy podcast.
Our award-winning content will have you laughing while you're learning.
We read all the best articles, books, and studies, and keep up with new TV shows, documentaries, and pop culture. And then we cram it all into 2 shows a week.
Conspiracy theories, cannibal rabbits, unsolved mysteries, the history of the Walkman. There's something for everyone.
The Brain Candy podcast. Find our link in the show notes.
Or simply search for the Brain Candy podcast on your podcast app.